Here's another update on the CNC. We're getting really close. So most of the wiring is done here. I guess I'll start there. All the wiring goes through the drag chain there. I've got the keyboard in my hand. Let me set that down. And then goes into the back of this unit. And then again, all the electronics are going to sit right here, but they're made to be pulled out and put up here so we can work on them, which is what we're doing obviously right now. All this needs to get bundled in there better. These are all the limit switches. The controller unit itself is mostly Cat 5 connected, and then we just had this jack, so we just connected the limit switches to there in that fashion. And then all of the wiring runs, there's a limit switch right there, and there's one right here on the Z-axis, and then one over there as well. And then of course on the back side of the Y down there at 96 inches, and then the front side of the Y. So all those get wired up and will automatically stop the machine at its limits. We got the spindle in. The mount is kind of screwed up, but we fixed it. It was a Chinese kind of POS, but long story, we got it all connected well. The Z-axis is sort of a one-piece unit. That's this back frame. And then the motor we bought separately, and it just mounts onto the Z-axis. And then the spindle and the mount for the spindle were bought separately as well. The spindle works on three-phase, and it runs at 24,000 RPM, anywhere from 9,000 to 24,000 RPM. It's got a half-inch chuck in the bottom of the collet and several different collets that come with it, so we can do all kinds of pretty big bits if we need to. It's also water cooled. You probably can't see the air bubbles flowing through there right now, but water is flowing in. It goes around the chamber to cool it and back out, and that water just runs through all the hoses, through the drag chain, and ends up coming out right here and then just down into the bucket. One of the hoses is pumping the water, and the other hose is just dripping the water back into the bucket. So that keeps, and hopefully you got to keep an eye on the water temperature, but there should be enough there that the ambient temperature of the room and the hose will keep things cool. The iPad is normally what runs everything. I'll show you that next. That just snaps into here, so we can always have it connected. And then I just put this little thing on here to keep it charged all the time. So that is how we can control the unit. You can load different jobs here, start them off. You can jog the machine around with these buttons, which I can do right now. If I hit the Y positive, I can't look at my phone and the screen at the same time. So now I'm holding the Y positive, so the Y axis is moving down the gantry. If I want to control the Z up and down, there's the spindle going up and going down. And of course the X axis goes left and right. And you can see how all of that rides. It's just this, I guess, pretty standard for the way CNCs work. It's just a really strong NEMA motor driving a pulley, 2-to-1 reduction to that pulley, and then a shaft goes through the motor mount to this flange bearing here, that green thing, and then eventually the flange bearing holds the pinion gear, which is that little black gear right there, riding back and forth on the pinion rail, just like a rack and pinion steering in a car. And then that spring just holds a little bit of pressure. The weight of the motor is pretty good, but the spring adds a little more pressure to keep the gear engaged into the rail. If we ever run into something, that gear can bounce and that spring won't let it do so. It's not permanently fixed into there, where if you run into something with the X-axis, it would bind everything. The Y-axis works the same way. You can see the spring mechanism over there. And so if we hit something with the Y-axis, Both of them have that spring mechanism, and then they pivot on that pivot point right there. So let's see what else. We're getting there. There's a 110 unit at the top that was going to power on the well, it still may actually power on the pump for the water system, so that's not always running. And then the other red cord you see there is just another 110 line coming into a little jack I bought at Menards, so we can plug in a laser module later as an upgrade. They make laser modules that basically just either come off of here and clamp right to the x-axis. Then they make some more that clamp to, oh, that's even cold, that water's flowing through there, that clamp right here and then give you a laser add-on right to your spindle. And then those will, when we eventually upgrade to doing that, then that'll just plug into the power up here, which is all switched and controlled by the little box here, obviously then controlled by the software. So that's what that is for up there. And yeah, all the electronics in here, motor drivers, fans to keep everything cool. That's what you're hearing running there. So next steps is to just get the spindle hooked up. It's not actually wired just yet. That's this last wire that's got to get connected and put onto here. And then there's a power supply that turns 110 single phase into 110 three phase, and then that's what, as I said earlier, drives the spindle power. And as soon as we get that connected, we'll be ready to put everything down here in its cubbies and shut it up. There's a dust collection, or a dust filter rather, system that is a door that goes on the front here. I think I showed that in one of the previous videos, that lets it suck the air in through that filter and keep everything cool. That's the computer driving everything. Just a pair of speakers there so we can hear the alarm tones and so forth. Everything is driven through Ethernet, so the Ethernet cable coming out of the computer is what drives this little unit, and then this is the main brain. Oh, and we got to hook up the this little dust boot. Will go around the spindle like so and get clamped onto there, and then when it cuts, obviously all the debris stays in the bristles, and then this port here will get connected with this hose and just run up to there and connect into the house system. So that also has to get connected before we're done, but I'd say another 3 or 4 days of work and we'll be ready to run our first test and hopefully start making some pretty cool projects. So, well, talk to you guys later. Bye.